Wow. It's hard to believe, but it's the last session of the day. C'est vraiment difficile à croire, mais nous voici à la dernière séance de la journée. Over the past 2 days, we've heard from industry leaders, thinkers, and experts on a variety of topics and issues. We've looked at our present, and we've gazed into what the future may hold for the travel and tourism industry. In this final session, we'll be exploring how national action plans affect you in your respective province or territory, and how your region is working with TIAC to rebuild Canada's visitor economy. Lors de cette dernière séance, nous étudierons comment les plans d'action nationaux vous concernent dans votre province ou territoire respectif et comment votre région collabore avec l'AITC pour rebâtir l'économie touristique et l'industrie du voyage du Canada. We hope you enjoy these regional sessions.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Alberta Caucus portion of the 2020 TIAC Congress. Your moderator and one of today's presenters is Alida Visba, Chair of the Tourism Industry Association of Alberta. Alida is former president and CEO of Heritage Park Historical Village, where among her many accomplishments, she led an expansion that more than doubled the size of the park. With over 30-plus years of marketing, communications, and capital campaign development experience in the tourism economy space, she has been widely recognized for her leadership abilities and notably her contributions to Alberta's tourism industry when she was appointed an Alto Ambassador in 2015. Welcome to the virtual stage, Alida.
If you're not familiar with the Tourism Industry Association of Alberta, or TIAC for short, the association was launched a year ago at the Travel Alberta Industry Conference. As everyone knows, Alberta was facing unprecedented structural economic challenges that preceded COVID-19. Recovering and growing the visitor economy to new heights is going to take all the industry effort we can muster. I believe focusing on becoming a $20 billion industry by 2030 must be our aim. In that context, your voice matters more than ever. The industry's voice matters more than ever. And TIA's voice, as a proxy for all the connected sectors that comprise the visitor economy, matters more than ever. When the new Ministry of Jobs, Economy and Innovation was formed and we lost the specific ministry reference to tourism, TIA wasted no time advocating for the creation of a parliamentary secretary role to help recover and grow tourism to a $20 billion industry and keep the government laser focused on supporting this industry through a whole of government approach. So I'm happy today to introduce Alberta's new Parliamentary Secretary of Small Business and Tourism, Martin Long, MLA from West Yellowhead. Mr. Long was elected to the Legislative Assembly of Alberta in 2019. In addition to being Parliamentary Secretary, some of Mr. Long's other responsibilities include serving on the Premier's Council on Charities and Civil Society, the Members' Planning Committee on Communities and Family, and acting as Chair of the Upper Smoky Lake Caribou Task Force. Mr. Long, over to you.
Hi, thanks for the introduction and thanks to the Tourism Industry Association of Canada and the Tourism Industry Association of Alberta for inviting me to be part of today's session, especially my new role as Parliamentary Secretary for Small Business and Tourism. As we grapple with the ongoing pandemic, these opportunities to connect are more important than ever. I've seen firsthand the valuable role Alberta's tourism industry plays in our economy. Prior to the pandemic, it employed 72,500 full-time employees and contributed $7.3 billion to the province's GDP annually. Tourism businesses also make up a large portion of the Alberta small businesses that provide good jobs in our hometowns and neighborhoods and inject billions of dollars a year into our economy. 2020 has presented economic challenges that nobody saw coming. This has truly been a difficult year, and for many tourism businesses, perhaps their most difficult year yet. I know that rising case numbers, as well as the enhanced temporary measures announced on November 13th, have presented additional challenges. But through it all, you've been hard at work ensuring the health and safety of your visitors, and we're committed to working just as hard to support you. To provide immediate relief to the sector, we introduced a number of supports over the spring and summer. This included protection for commercial tenants, the tourism levy abatement, our small and medium enterprise relaunch grant, and more. When it comes to our relaunch grant, we've already seen thousands of businesses access this important funding, but I'd like to see even more businesses take advantage of the program. So if you haven't already, I strongly encourage you to apply if you are eligible, or spread the word to anyone you know who might be eligible. The government of Alberta is also moving forward with Alberta's recovery plan, a bold, ambitious, long-term strategy to build our province, diversify our economy, and create jobs. A key part of this plan includes making sure our tourism industry recovers. To do this, we need to take the current state of the sector into account. So that's why we are focusing our immediate work in the tourism sector on recovery efforts. We're working on developing a recovery plan for the tourism industry as we speak, and we will share more details on this plan as soon as it's ready, so please stay tuned. I'd also like to assure you that the goals to double tourism spending and develop a 10-year tourism strategy have not changed. We just have more work we need to do to get there. So we are committed to taking the time we need to recover the sector first before we finalize the 10-year strategy and roll it out. The road ahead will inevitably have its challenges, but I am committed to working with you and listening to you along the way. This includes working hand in hand with key partners like the Tourism Industry Association of Alberta and Travel Alberta. And I'm excited today to share about David Goldstein's recent appointment as Travel Alberta's new CEO, and great to finally put a face to the name. David brings a wealth of experience to his role, and he's joining Travel Alberta at a crucial time for our tourism industry. I personally look forward to working with him and our other partners across the sector as we rebound from COVID and turn our sights toward recovering and growing tourism here in Alberta. Alberta's tourism industry has a valuable role to play in Alberta's recovery and driving Alberta's economy forward. In my new role, I am dedicated to focusing on the sector and its needs. This includes continuing to engage with you through important forums like this. Your feedback will help inform our actions going forward. Together, I know that we will chart a course that's worthy of your efforts and ambitious enough to bring tourism opportunities in Alberta to unprecedented heights. Thank you again for having me here today.
Darren is a lifelong Albertan that has spent the past 30 years of his career advocating for the province's small to medium-sized business sector, with more than half of that time directly focused on tourism and hospitality. He is passionate about the industry and its future potential to transform the provincial economic landscape. Darren, over to you.
Right, thank you, Alita. I wanted to start by acknowledging the efforts of Alberta industry partners during these very challenging times, and particularly in light of the added anxiety that comes with Alberta's rapidly rising COVID case count numbers. So thank you to our restaurant owners for keeping your doors open to takeout and limited sit-down service when Albertans have needed you most. Thank you to our accommodation sector partners for exceeding provincial guidance measures for cleaning and sanitizing spaces and making your workers and visitors feel safe and welcome. Thank you to our many convention operators who served the needs of struggling Albertans at a time they were not able to welcome large delegate groups to their facilities. And thank you to our airports and our airline partners for your tenacity, for your professionalism in advancing the sector's needs and the importance of returning to travel just as soon as possible. To all other sector partners, your efforts are so greatly appreciated. Since COVID appeared, TIAC has been meeting with TIAC and other provincial tourism industry associations on a regular basis to discuss emerging issues and to consider possible solutions to matters such as gaps in business eligibility for COVID-related support programs, rising insurance declinations, and rising premiums across all segments of the visitor economy. A lot of these issues we discussed at the national table are informed by our conversations with local business operators and the heads of sector associations that represent their sector's specific issues. From a TIAC perspective, working with TIAC and our provincial and territorial partners has also created a meaningful path to discuss the importance of emerging themes and trends that will influence future visitation patterns, such as the growing value attached to nature and outdoor recreation experiences, and the importance of sustainability to Canada's brand, and now even more than ever, to our economic recovery. Alberta is uniquely positioned to contribute to these discussions, seen as the two national parks that contribute a great deal to the country's conservation leadership and the economic impact resulting from visitation to Canada are located right here in our province. In terms of coordination on federal issues during the pandemic crisis, TIAC and the provincial and territorial tourism associations, in meeting 2 to 3 times a month on average, have put their full support behind TIAC's Federal Tourism 5-Point Advocacy Plan, a plan which you've already heard referenced during Congress, but is so key to supporting businesses through this crisis, with its recommendations that include credit availability program changes that would include 100% government-backed loans, stimulus funding that would include non-repayable grants up to $50,000 for project initiatives in key categories, an extension of the CEWS program through to summer 2021, which we're all pleased to have seen has actually happened. And thank you to all that were part of the grassroots advocacy efforts to make this happen, and through the hard work of the Hardest Hit Coalition. And finally, the creation of a recovery program that would assist urban destination marketing organizations replace business lost due to COVID-19 and to secure new opportunities. With that, I'm going to hand it back over to Alita, and I thank you for your time and participating in today's session.
Thank you for your presentation, Darren. Darren has explained how TIA interfaces with other tourism industry associations at the federal level specifically. Now, I would like to provide you with some insights on how TIA is working to support the recovery, growth, and resilience of our provincial tourism industry. Key to recovering the industry is moving forward with the adoption of rapid testing protocols and relaxing border and travel restrictions in a safe and responsible manner. TIA has been advocating for rapid testing as part of its ongoing discussions with the Government of Alberta, and we were pleased when rapid testing was put in place at the Calgary International Airport and the Coots border crossing on November the 2nd. Perhaps the only thing harder on businesses than being closed down or unable to operate at the level your business was designed for is not knowing what the policy intentions of government are. In the same way that the federal government has now extended the CEWS program out into summer 2021, TIA believes that the Government of Alberta needs to consider additional ways it can support the entire visitor economy to weather through until at least next summer, or until such time that restrictions on borders, air travel, and social distancing requirements can be relaxed. TIA is also pushing for additional government supports or policy considerations in the areas of fixed transmission and distribution costs on utility bills, sky-high increases in insurance premiums and raising rates of insurance declinations, and commercial property taxes and their impact on the scarce cash flow of business. Air travel is key to supporting Canada's economic recovery, attracting investments, reuniting families, facilitating personal and business travel, and moving cargo. A recent Statistics Canada report reveals that since COVID-19, overall passenger numbers on Canadian airlines are down between 90 and 95%. Whether it's the fees, taxes, and rents the industry has to pay, or the ongoing uncertainty of when travelers may again be able to move freely through air travel, the functioning of our airports and airlines is critical to Canada's economic recovery and goes well beyond just the tourism industry. I'd like to speak a bit more about sector impacts across the different dimensions of our visitor economy. Food and beverage. Even with government support like CEWS, Restaurants Canada reports that 51% of quick service restaurants and 68% of full service restaurants are still operating at a loss and accumulating debt. Accommodation. In the latest data provided to the Alberta Hotel and Lodging Association by the commercial real estate experts CBRE, forecasts for Canada's lodging sector show that there will be no net cash flow to make debt payments on interest or principal until approximately June 2021. There are certainly other subsectors that have been impacted that are not mentioned here, but the examples provided are just an illustration of how far-reaching and deeply impacting the pandemic crisis has been. In a recent presentation Darren Reeder and I made to the Standing Committee on Alberta's Economic Future, a bipartisan committee of the Legislative Assembly, TIAC presented its call to action report and the 40 recommendations we presented to the Premier's office in June to help position the visitor economy for future growth. 3 recommendations that we emphasized to the committee that I would like to restate for our audience today are: amend the Tourism Levy Act to prescribe that 100% of Alberta Tourism Levy funds benchmarked to 2019 levels and, with a built-in accelerator to account for future growth, will flow to Travel Alberta to support a reprofiled destination management mandate. Secondly, commit to and create a cross-ministry tourism secretariat to ensure that there is a whole-of-government approach to building a $20 billion tourism industry. And finally, in the short term, and when safe to do so, incentivize travel by Albertans in their province through the creation of a household tax incentive or credit to cause them to want to spend more like a visitor from abroad. Thank you for listening. I would now like to turn things over to Travel Alberta's new president and CEO, David Goldstein. David joined us just 3 days ago as the new president and CEO, and we're delighted to welcome him to Alberta. David brings many years of experience to his role, including the president and CEO of TIAC, as well as of Destination Canada. We are delighted to have David with us, and we look forward to him leading the charge for the many years ahead. David, over to you.
Thank you, Alita, and the other members of the panel. Perhaps I can kick off just with the congratulations to the folks at TIAC for putting together this virtual conference or congress under these very difficult times, but it's really important that we all gather around to talk about those issues. I think this is my 11th TIAC Congress in a different role than previously envisioned. It's good to be back, especially given the challenges that the sector is facing. I think if you ask me why I wanted to undertake this challenge, there's really 2 reasons. The first is my personal commitment to the tourism industry and the relationships I've built over a decade, and watching friends, and some of them first in their second and third generation family businesses who are struggling to just keep their nostrils above the waterline. I felt it was really important to be part of a smart recovery, to help drive a smart recovery. And the second, specifically here in Alberta, is that pre-COVID, the plan that they had been developing was a strong one. And Mr. Long already referred to several elements of it, so I won't reiterate that. But I think there's a very ambitious plan, but I think it's very achievable once we get through the cloud of COVID. Perhaps we go to the next slide. I won't spend a lot of time on, because I think a couple of the other panelists have done this really well. But I think the one thing that I'm focused on, and just echoing Mr. Long's comment, this was pre-COVID an $8.9 billion sector, and there's no reason with a smart recovery that we shouldn't be able to double that in the time over the plan's projection, because we're blessed with so many of the basics in this province, which I'll go into in a bit. Next slide, please. I want to salute not just the team here at Travel Alberta. It's day 3 for me, so I don't want to take any kudos for this. But they quickly responded to the crisis, working with our partners across the province and with our national partners. And that began with readjusting their almost their entire budget to refocus on working with and supporting the DMOs and working with and supporting the industry through the cooperative investment mechanisms to the tune of probably over $18 million. Sometimes Crown corporations can't be nimble, but I think we've heard the challenge, and the team has responded tremendously. We started, it's difficult from a marketing perspective to market your way through this crisis. It's, again, as the other panelists have noted, it's tough to get a gauge on where we are in the short run, and making sure that we keep our eyes on the mid and the long term. We started with an Alberta campaign in November, and I think that followed some fairly good results in the summer. Speaking to Albertans, convincing Albertans to travel within Alberta. But we knew that with the fall coming, we really needed to turn our attention to how to keep some of that momentum going. And we're going to continue to work with our partners, the cities and the other destinations around the province, just reminding Albertans that they can get away within the province. We obviously have to work with our provincial health officials as we hoped to expand those campaigns into secondary markets, whether it's British Columbia or Saskatchewan, and hopefully further afield. But that's going to have to be done, at least in the short run, in lockstep with the situation on the ground with regards to caseloads and frankly, the caseloads of those destinations or those potential travelers that we want to speak to. I think, and I'll wrap up quickly, but we're also looking forward, and I think the important part of all this is not to lose sight as we manage the short term, is to make sure that we are executing smart moves for our mid and long term rebuild, and we will rebuild, and we will do so with continued partnerships, both with the DMOs and the communities, continue to innovate, making sure that we're constructing campaigns that find the right travelers, and focusing on continued growth and support for destination development. This is going to be, I'm hoping this is going to be a very different approach than recoveries in the past. You may not be able to see the gray hair, but I'm old enough to remember how we came out of the 2008-2009 recession. And this is going to be something totally different, and something that I think is going to have to be built by communities up. That our work with the industry, our work with communities to make sure they're ready to safely and warmly greet travelers from Alberta, across Canada, and eventually the world. So I'm looking forward. I'm actually going to try and get out and see as many of you as I can. I see 173 participants, which is, I think, it's just fantastic. And we're really looking forward. We were talking about this just before we came live, but I'm so looking forward to working with the Industry Association and Mr. Long and his colleagues on being part of this recovery. Thanks.
As you have heard during this session, Alberta's tourism industry has a long road to recovery ahead. However, together, we have a strong and respected voice. This is the time to join all our forces into a single voice for the industry, and I believe TIA is this voice. I know that there are incredibly challenging times for tourism businesses ahead, but I ask you seriously to consider allowing TIA to become part of your risk management strategy and joining as a member to help your business and our industry pull through this crisis. Post-session, each of you will receive a quick email from TIA with some information about the role, activities, and accomplishments to date of the organization. I encourage you to review this and consider whether you would take a step forward with TIA as your risk management partner in advancing industry concerns to the provincial and federal governments. We are stronger together. Thank you to my co-presenters, Martin Long, Darren Reeder, and David Goldstein. And thank you to you, our audience, for participating in our Alberta Breakout session. Enjoy the rest of the TIAC conference.
Thank you to all our provincial and territorial partners. Merci à tous nos partenaires provinciaux et territoriaux. Voilà qui nous amène à conclure le congrès touristique de l'AITC. It has been a packed 2 days. Don't worry if you've missed any sessions. Recorded sessions will be available to members on the TIAC website. You'll be able to access those recorded sessions beginning on November 23rd. Please join us at 2:30 p.m. Eastern for an industry social and celebration with Air Canada, Destination Canada, and WestJet as we honor our Hall of Fame inductees, present our Lifetime Achievement Award, and put on a special salute to Canadian tourism. Joignez-vous à nous à 14h30 heure de l'Est pour une activité sociale et une cérémonie organisée par Air Canada, Destination Canada et WestJet. Nous rendrons hommage aux personnes accueillies au Temple de la Renommée, remettrons le prix d'excellence pour l'ensemble d'une œuvre et saluerons tout particulièrement le tourisme canadien. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été les nôtres pour ce tout premier congrès touristique virtuel de l'AITC. Et n'oubliez pas le mot-clic, le tourisme compte. Thank you so much for joining us for this first ever virtual TIAC Tourism Congress. From Canada's capital, Ottawa, I'm Catherine Callery. It's been my pleasure being your MC. And remember, #tourism counts.